What's up, everybody? It's Derek here again with Dog Media. We're back with the 2024 season, fantasy football season, that is. Ready to get things going. I'm a little late getting to this series. I wanted to start this series last month. I know I put a video out saying that the series was coming. I went out of town for a while. Didn't really have time to get this video up and running. This mini series of Fantasy Football 101. Today, we're just going to go over. I know it's draft weekend for a lot of people. This video is coming late, but hopefully, most drafts will be coming today and tomorrow. And also, the majority of the drafts are actually next weekend. So hopefully, you guys are seeing this before then, before you guys draft if you're new to fantasy football. So we'll go ahead and get straight into it. Today, we're going to be going over a little bit of the roster construction of what it looks like on the platform, on your desktop, on your computer, when you pull it up, what your dashboard is going to look like. This is going to help you guys kind of filter out all of the noise and really hone in on what's important. Um, we're going to be taking a look at my team from last year since that roster is kind of already filled out. That way you can kind of get a breakdown of what it looks like, kind of where players go and whatnot. And then at the end of the video, once we kind of get a gist of the roster breakdown, we'll jump into a mock draft. But that'll be later on. So without further ado, let us get straight into it. Yeah, here we go. Here's an empty league. So this is what it's going to look like when you first get into your league. As you can see, this draft is scheduled for Saturday at 6:30 p.m. This is for my main league. This is what the roster is going to look like. For this league in particular, it's a little bit a different roster setup. So we have more wide receivers and two flexes, which we'll get into what that means later on. Standard leagues, you're going to have two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, one flex, a defense, and a kicker. We opted to not do kickers in this league and go with another flex. But to break it down, of course, you have your quarterback. So this is going to be like, whoever you draft, whether it's Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, or or whatever quarterback you draft, this is going to be your starter. You're going to start two running backs. Um, in most leagues, that's going to be across the board, two running backs, for sure. Um, Here we have three wide receivers, one tight end. This is going to be like your Travis Kelsey position, your Dallas Goedert, Mark Andrews, those types of players. And then you have your flex position. Now, your flex is really important because you can either play a tight end, a wide receiver, or a running back. So this is kind of one of those positions where it gives you the option to play a different or multiple positions. Some leagues they have a super flex, in which case you can play another quarterback. But that's not a standard league, so we won't get too far into that. And then you have your defense and special teams. So this is obviously going to be your team defense. You'll score points for, sacks, turnovers, defensive touchdowns, and also special teams touchdowns, kick returns, things like that. And then you'll have your bench players. Your bench players are who you are not going to start week in and week out, right? These are just kind of depth players. Maybe you draft Christian McCaffrey or for people that really don't know, like Ezekiel Elliott. Let me throw some big names out there, or Bijan Robinson, and say you draft their backup. So you draft like Elijah Mitchell, who's Christian McCaffrey's backup, or Tyler Algier, who's Bijan's backup, or Rico Dowdle, who currently is Ezekiel Elliott's backup, but will most likely take over that backfield, probably by week 5. So that's what these are for, or just extra players. Say you have a really good draft and you draft three great wide receivers and two great flex players, and then you can even stash, a couple maybe rookie players that have huge upside and huge potential, like Xavier Worthy or Xavier Leggett, or people like that maybe won't make an impact early on in the season, but you're looking and holding them on your bench. They're not affecting your total score for the week early on, but potentially take over their team as a number one option later on, and then you have an even better option later on in the year. But for the most part, your starters are who you're going to draft first. So this is my team from last year. And, I had Kyler Murray at quarterback, Bijan, DeAndre Swift, all these really good players, Travis Kelsey, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Josh Jacobs, really, really good players to start. And then, down here, for instance, Keenan Allen was a great player throughout the year. Was actually I think he finished as like the number 8 wide receiver. He was on my bench. I think this was towards the end of the year. He didn't play maybe this game. Same with Hollywood Brown. Some players that um Aaron Rodgers on IR. This is another spot we didn't quite cover is your IR. This is your injured reserve. This is for players that are out or injured that you can move down here and open up another roster spot to pick up a free agent. And we'll get more into free agents and dropping players and picking up players later down the road. But for the most part, this is your roster construction, right? So you have your roster. Now, how do these guys score points? Well, for this particular league, you have your quarterback scores most of their points by passing, right? For this particular league, they'll get for every 1 yard in real life, for every one passing yard, they get 0.04 points. And then for every touchdown pass, they get 6 points. Now, this is not your standard scoring. Your standard scoring is going to be more like 4 points for every passing touchdown. This league puts a very big emphasis on passing touchdowns. And rushing. So rushing is 0.1 point for every 1 yard. So for every 10 yards, they get 1 point, right? And then for every touchdown rush is essentially 6 points. That's standard. If they rush a 2 point conversion, two. Same premise for the receivers, 0.1 for every receiving yard. For every 10, they get one. And then this league, this is where a lot of differences are going to be. 1 point per each reception. This is becoming the standard in ESPN scoring. Well, in fantasy football in general, this is becoming the standard. This is what we consider a PPR, point per reception league. Um, ESPN, I think, still has their standard league as no points per reception. So you will not get any points per reception. So make sure before you draft that this is crucial to your draft strategy, right? Because if you're not getting a point per reception, you're not going to want to emphasize your wide receivers because they're not getting that extra point. So say you have a wide receiver that receives the ball 10 times, he catches the ball 10 times and has 100 yards, well, that's already 20 points. Versus in a non PPR league, you're only getting 10 points for the 100 yards that they get, right? Because it's zero point 0.1 for every yard. So that 1 point becomes, if they start racking up receptions, if you get a wide receiver like Keenan Allen was last year or CeeDee Lamb, who's going to get over 100 receptions every year, this is huge. This is crucial because typically those guys won't go early in the draft in a non PPR league. In a PPR league with point per reception, they're going to go very early, as we'll see in a minute if we hop into a mock draft. CeeDee Lamb is going top 3 every draft. Um, and then you of course get your 6 points per touchdown reception. So if they have 10 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown, you get 26 points, which is a very, very great score for a wide receiver. And then of course your 2 point conversion. And then to touch on this again, some have a half PPR league, which is zero point 0.5 points for every reception, which is a very good medium. You still are valuing wide receivers. But this receiving also goes for running backs that catch the ball as well. And same with rushing for quarterbacks that rush, right? So say a quarterback rushes for 10 yards, they also get that 10 points. Or say a running back catches 5 passes, they also get the 5 PPR and the yards. So this is interchangeable through these positions. That's just how each aspect of the game is scored. Kicking doesn't pertain to our league, but for most leagues, you are going to have your kicker, 1 point for every extra point. So what they make at the end of a touchdown. And then 30 to a 30-yard field goal is 3 points. 40-yard field goal is 4, 55, 60 pluses. In this league is 5 as well. That may differ. Check your league settings and whatever you are to make sure you get that. Kickers are underrated in leagues. And then your team defense. This is the defense and special teams that I was talking about. Of course, your kickoff return for TD, punt return. Any touchdown is typically going to be 6 points. So if your defense intercepts a ball and returns it for a touchdown, it's going to be six. Yeah, so essentially, a good rule of thumb is any touchdown is going to be 6 points. You also get points for 2 point returns, a safety, 1 point for every sack, 2 points for a block, and 2 points for interceptions and fumbles and safeties. And then for points allowed, if they have a good week and don't allow many points, they're going to get 5 points. Most defenses you will see will start off with 10 points or so. This is because they obviously have not allowed any points yet in the week and also have not allowed any yards yet in the week. Now, as the game goes on and the offense starts putting on yards, you'll see that point decrease. Unless they have a great week, you won't see a decrease. You'll just see it increase, obviously, and the scoring down. So let's put it into perspective for you on a actual game week. This was the last game of the season for me. I lost. I don't believe I made the playoffs. In this particular league, I started off 6-0, and yeah, ended with that. So whatever. I don't like to bring up old stuff, but so here we go. So here is the final week of the season. As you can see, you have a projected points and actual fantasy points. Don't get caught up in the fantasy point projection, right? These are just projections, obviously. None of them, I mean, besides Josh Downs, Rasheed Rice were even close. I mean, this is just what people think is going to happen. So I don't like to go off of fantasy projection too much, obviously. I missed out on 20 points this week. But essentially, here, if you look, I don't know if we can actually bring up. Yeah, we can. Sweet. So here's a game log, right? So Kyler Murray missed the beginning of the year. He was recovering from a torn ACL last season. For instance, this last week, you have 260 yards, one touchdown. He also ran the ball 5 times for 33 yards, and that accumulated 19.7 fantasy points, which is relatively good for a quarterback. Anything over 20 points is going to be great. As you can see, he averaged 20 points and 166 fantasy points in only, you know, 8 games played is really good. I mean, he's a really good fantasy quarterback. Unfortunately, obviously, he didn't help me most of the year. I was interchanging quarterbacks until he got healthy, but this is kind of how it will look from week to week. You don't really care. This doesn't get scored in most leagues, attempts, completions, and percentage. All you're going to really look at week to week is your yards, your touchdowns, your interceptions, fumbles, carries, rushing carries and yards, and touchdowns. And that's what's going to score you the points. So for instance, he had 3 touchdowns, 232 yards, and 24 yards on the ground. So that puts him at 29.68 fantasy points for week 17, which was really good. That's a really high end game. Most of these are obviously from the touchdowns. Of course, like I was saying earlier, this league is 6 points for every touchdown thrown. So that's 18 points just off of touchdowns thrown in this game in particular. Just depends on your league scoring. That's something that you have to do your own research on. Bijan Robinson, this is another breakdown on how running backs are scored. He had 28 yards on the ground, so that gives him 2.8 points rushing. But this is a perfect example. He had 7 receptions, so that puts him 7 points because it's 1 point per reception plus 2.8. So that just off of receiving yards or receptions and rushing yards, he's at 9.8. So that puts him at 9.8, and then you add in 103 yards receiving. So that puts him at 19 fantasy points plus the touchdown, puts him at 25 plus the, point 3, point 8 puts him at 26.1, which is a really good week for a running back. He was the running back 9 on average, which was right around his not his draft position. He finished not very good. Yeah, that's how running backs are scored. So 26.1 is a really good week for a running back. And then, of course, you have your wide receivers. he didn't play that last, well, he did play, he just didn't score. Um, 2 receptions for 21 yards is 4.1 points. It's pretty self-explanatory for wide receivers. You won't typically see them get any carries. He did here, minus zero point 0.2, which doesn't make or break you on most weeks. But yeah, essentially, this is what you're looking at. Your receptions and your yards. Pretty self-explanatory on that end. At the end of the day, it's just math, right? If you know your scoring system, which it's not hard. All you have to do is go to league, settings, scoring. If you know your scoring system, it's just math. And math that you don't technically even have to do, the computer will do it for you. If you know your roster construction and you know your league, you're bound to be successful. Of course, at the end of the day, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, fantasy football is luck. It's 90% luck. You cannot predict injuries, you cannot predict play calls, you cannot predict a lot of the stuff that fantasy football is. Now, you can do certain things to help you win. You can obviously expect Patrick Mahomes to be the number one quarterback at the end of the year. You can expect Christian McCaffrey to be the number one running back at the end of the year. But this day and age, it's hard to predict wide receivers, and it's even harder past probably those two players. It's hard to predict where everybody is going to end up, right? Um, Especially with more teams leaning towards running back by committee, which is using 2 or 3 running backs every game. You don't know who's going to get the workload. Now, you have a couple of teams who their set in stone number one is you got your Bijan Robinson, Brees Hall, Christian McCaffrey, and that's admit Saquon Barkley probably with the Eagles and Jonathan Taylor. You have 5 probably running backs that are not going to give up a lot of carries to other people, but you never know. What if Jonathan Taylor gets injured again? Or what if CMC gets injured again? Or, so it's mostly luck, honestly. That's what a lot of people don't tell you is you can do all the preparation that you want. You can watch all the podcasts. You can watch, you know, whoever it is, whatever it is. You can look at these cheat sheets and oh, early rounds, Anthony Richardson is a rising threat, or CJ Stroud in the middle rounds or late rounds, whoever it is, you can look at all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's real life. You cannot predict what happens in real life. If you could, we would all be millionaires. But without further ado, let's just hop into a quick mock draft. We'll do a practice draft right here in that league that I was telling you about so that you could kind of see it scoring as it relates to the league specifically, this league specifically. Now I'll be drafting against the CPU. Um, it'll start in 20 seconds. As you'll see, the mock draft begins, and this is all computer. And so it'll go by pretty quick. And over here on the side, you can kind of see who's been drafted. Now, this is what I was trying to tell y'all. CeeDee Lamb went round one. Why? Because of the 1 point per reception. He's not battling anybody for targets. As you can see, look at Tyreek Hill here. I don't know if it'll show his projection. Yeah, 2024 projected season, 106 receptions. That's what you are looking for. Most of the time, Tyreek Hill is not going to fall to you in this position. We'll take him just for the heck of it. I've never seen him fall to this is pick 7, by the way. And as you could see in this particular league, what's going first? I told you those 3: Christian McCaffrey, Bijan, and Brees. And then it's just a wide receiver run with Saquon and Jonathan Taylor, of course, Jahmyr Gibbs. We'll get into all the rankings of players later on, and go more in depth into players. I just kind of wanted to show y'all what it's like to draft a team, right? So, for instance, this league is a little bit different with 3 wide receivers. So you're gonna probably go wide receiver heavy. We'll go Drake London just for the heck of it, right? Um, if you see any names here that you think is a great value and I don't pick them, this is not my strategy whatsoever. This is just to show you guys how to construct a roster. A lot of times you're going to see people overvalue wide receivers in a 3 wide receiver PPR league because they go quick, right? You have to start 3 minimum, possible 5 wide receivers in this particular league. So we might just end up going best available player here. Anyway, so this is how a draft typically looks. They have all the rankings of a player. Uh, you can sort it by rank if you want. These are where ESPN ranks their players, and then you can, This one's moving a little fast because it's 30-second picks, but it'll show you their projections. Again, I don't really lean too hard on projections. We'll go Jalen Hurts because I'm an Eagles fan. Why not? So you got your quarterback, your wide receivers. This is how you would construct a roster. You pick the players that you want, and that's pretty much all there is to it. We'll go more in depth into drafts later on, probably tomorrow on sleepers. Sleepers are someone that I want to pick in like round 5, 6, 7 that have really breakout potential. Um, that can really just win you your league, right? If you pick a guy that finishes in the top 7 of his position in round 6 or 7, you're probably going to be in contention to win your league. That's just how it goes. People like, who's a person that I like in round 6? I don't want to give too much away because my league mates might be watching and we haven't drafted yet. But um, for heck of it, Brian Robinson. This is really early for Brian Robinson, by the way. I'm reaching on some of these picks, but I don't want to give too much of my strategy away. Yeah, essentially this is how it goes, right? You have your draft, and you saw how I targeted wide receiver early on, right? You don't want to go quarterback in round 1. That's a big one. You don't want to go uh tight end round 1. Even if you love Travis Kelce, you really don't want to take him round 1 because if you look, this is where playing the draft game can help you. If I took Travis Kelce instead of Tyreek Hill because I know Travis Kelce, he's a name, right? I miss out on Tyreek Hill or Jamar Chase or Puka Nakua when I can get him in round 3. So I miss out on potentially two other huge players that when I can get Travis Kelce later on. So that's another thing that you want to do is just know how your league drafts, right? The first quarterback went in round 4, and then I took a quarterback right after. Typically, I won't do that, but just for the sake of it, I did. And then another quarterback went, and then you didn't see another tight end go until round 5. So you really want to play that game, that draft game. As you can see, the team is filling out. Now these are going to be your starters most likely come week 1. So that's typically how you draft. Just a quick example for you guys. Yeah, that I hope that gives you a little bit of a rundown on how it works and what to look for when starting a fantasy football league, how to break down your roster, how to fill guys into that roster come draft time. And after this draft season, after you guys are starting to draft, maybe watch a couple of my videos about who I think should go where. Then we can transition into waivers and picking players up and dropping players and when to start, which hopefully the series or these couple videos that I'm making of 101 will kind of transition seamlessly into my in-season videos where I'm making my waiver videos, where I'm making my add or drop, my trade targets, things like that. But for the most part, that's gonna do it for me here today. I hope this helps you out just a little bit on how to construct a roster. Um, but yeah, other than that, I hope you guys have a great day. Be on the lookout for more videos. Probably have one coming tomorrow. That'll be my breakdown for my busts and sleeper picks. We'll see. Most likely it'll be tomorrow, if not maybe tonight. But yeah, y'all be on the lookout for that, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace, guys. What's up, everyone? It's Derek here again. Thank you for watching the video. If you stayed to the end, I appreciate you so much. Be sure to follow me on Instagram. Links will be in the description. Be sure to follow me, subscribe. I'm not going to beg for subscriptions because I don't really care. I'm doing this because I love to do this. I'm doing this to share some knowledge with you guys. Thank you for watching. Hope everyone has a great day.